Disclaimer. At Two Addicts and a Moron, we discuss personal stories of addiction with the intention of being educational, relatable, and inspirational. The views and experiences shared are those of individuals involved, are not meant to glorify or condone any illegal or harmful behavior. This content is for educational purposes only and is not intended as professional advice. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, we strongly encourage you seek help from a qualified professional or support service.
Good.
And we are back to another episode of Two Addicts and a Moron. Holy crap. We brought a pageant lady with us today. look, Miss Elaine, everybody. Hello, Miss Elaine.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
How in the world do we keep getting these pageant people to keep coming on here?
We are a special group of people.
Yeah, tight knit.
Yeah, and that is true. We are tight knit.
So you were a Miss Texas.
So I am the official title that is United States of America's Mrs. Texas or USOA Mrs. Texas. I am currently, and I'm actually
2025.
2025, and I am competing in 17 days. I fly out of Austin to Las Vegas in 14 days.
Nice.
And what is that going to be for the title?
That is for the national title of United States of America's Mrs.
Will you please do me a favor when you win that? Because you're going to win. We don't have losers on Two Addicts and a Moron. No. Okay? But when you win that, please drop Two Addicts and a Moron over there, like in your speech.
Absolutely. Well, I already did. I did it on social media already. Yeah. On my Glinda.
Yeah. Man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you again for coming on and dressing the part. I feel I always feel underdressed, like anywhere I go, because this is kind of what I wear all the time. But I feel like I should be wearing a tuxedo right now.
Mm. Yes, I'm very offended that you're not wearing a tuxedo.
Yes.
I actually am underdressed myself. Usually it's rhinestones and sequins.
Man.
And I'm sorry, you weren't that special, I guess.
Now, on the other end of this, Mike wore his best muscle shirt for you today.
I love it.
He always puts on his best for Two Addicts and a Moron.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I actually have two looks. I have pageant and I have homeless, and you will never recognize me when I'm in homeless mode. Like someone actually mistook me for a boy at church one time.
Oh no!
Nice. But it's okay.
All right.
I can go undercover.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. You struggled in addiction.
Yep.
And how long did you struggle in addiction?
So I was an addict from 15 onward to 19.
Okay. And what was the DOC?
So where I ended up was heroin.
Whoa.
And so, of course, it didn't start out that way.
Sure.
It started out with smoking cigarettes and pot and drinking alcohol.
Uh-huh.
But it escalated pretty quick because of some of the things that had happened in my past.
Wow. So dive into that. 15 years old.
Yeah.
Starting in. So let me fast forward by rewinding a little bit here. But when did you start doing pageantry?
2 years ago.
Oh, whoa. So this is new and you're killing it.
Yeah,
like you're already.
I'm trying to do something here.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how long have you been sober?
So I am 44 now.
Okay.
And since I was 19.
Okay. All right. Well, talk a little bit about how it started for you.
Yeah. So when I was 13 years old, let me back up. My dad moved us from a big town from Houston to a small town, thinking that it would keep us kind of out of trouble because big bad city, small little quaint town. Problem is that there wasn't a lot to do in small little quaint town, except for church. So we did what every good red-blooded Texan Christian does, and we went to the church and got involved in the youth group. But what my dad probably could have never realized was that the real hidden danger was me being groomed by a youth pastor. not only me, but multiple girls in the in the youth group were groomed. And when it was found out that I was being abused, my mom immediately went to the church staff, walked into the main pastor's office, and he said, I already know what happens. He came and confessed. We believe that she seduced him.
Whoa.
I am 13 years old at this point. I have been playing Barbies with my sister. I'm watching Muppet Babies, maybe sneaking a little bit of Ghost when my dad wasn't looking because it was rated R.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea that I was initiating it is just crazy. But it took me a long time to realize how crazy it was. And it wasn't until, honestly, when I started in pageantry that I started really realizing that wasn't my fault.
Right.
And so I took all of that blame because immediately when he said it, it's not, grooming is one of those things that was not talked about in the 90s. It didn't, grooming was dog grooming. Like that's all we knew. And so it wasn't like it wasn't like the movies. You weren't thrown up against the wall and, clothes torn off. It felt consensual on my part. And for years, I said consensual. Until recently, me and my husband went into therapy, and my therapist was like, Elaine, I'm going to have to stop you. You've got to stop saying that.
Yeah.
There's no way that a 13-year-old girl can consent to a grown man who is in a position of authority and has used his position of authority to take advantage of not only me, but multiple people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, 10 years after what happened to me happened, he was convicted of his first offense. He had gotten a job at a high school volleyball coach at a Christian academy. And, it just, there was a little bit of freedom when I found that out because I realized, okay, he obviously it's not just it wasn't just then, it's still going on.
And this is recently, you're saying pageantry kind of helped you work through this a little bit.
Yeah. So I was, at 13.
You carried it for a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was 13 when it happened. I found out that he was convicted when I was about 23. I was having my first baby. And so I tried to go to the police because I was like, that's not fair. It's his first offense. It's not his first offense. Took all my, I had my diary, went to the police in the small town, gave them names of witnesses and other girls that it had happened to. They essentially came back and told me that no one wanted to testify about it or talk about it because they were still living in the small town. And then they were having problems pursuing the case because the family was so influential in the town. And
oh my God.
At that point, I was, you're 23, you don't really know what's available, any kind of resources. Now I know of all the resources. I work with the national organization called RAINN, Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And we actually just went to DC to talk about removing statute of limitations and getting more funding for the resources that they offer for sexually, violated people. And but it wasn't until pageantry really where I started finding my voice and speaking out and realizing how the power in speaking out against it. And the average age of disclosure for sexual abuse is 52.
Wow.
Whoa.
It takes almost everybody, obviously, a long time to work through abuse. And, this is why, statute of limitations shouldn't exist because sometimes it doesn't, it's over 10 years, if, or some states have a 4-year statute of limitations, especially if you're an adult. A lot of states have no statute for children, but if you've been raped at 18, you only have 4 years, 10 years to report it. I mean, you haven't even worked through your own stuff to then go through a whole court case or something like that. I mean, that's a lot.
So name this organization again.
RAINN. It's a Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. And they are the #1 group that fights against sexual violence. They're also federally recognized. From what I understand, there used to be like a 1-800 number you could call if you were experiencing that, and RAINN took it over. So now they're federally funded, and they offer so many resources. They could give advice. They could have given me advice at 23. They could have said, "That is not okay that police officer said that to you, and here's a somebody you can contact legally, or here's some stuff that you can do just to work through some of this stuff." And I'm so glad to be involved with them. I'm so glad that they offer, the stories that I heard because we went to 6 different Senate offices to talk about, put a face to the name, to the bill. And, that's one thing that I really would love to make sure people know is that you literally can write an email and go to your state senator or your national senator and have a conversation and say, this happened to me, the bill that is going through right now, I'm the face of this bill.
Yeah.
And that is your, really kind of our job as citizens is to make sure that the people up top are really doing what's best for us down here.
Well, that's what their job is too.
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to be at our beckoning call. You're supposed to be able to just reach out to them or show up at their office. They have offices all around here. You just show up and I need to speak to this person.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with also speaking to an aide there. You might not get the senator, but those aides, those are some super important people. They're the ones that are collecting everything and disseminating the information to the people, the legislators, and they're, that's just as good, honestly. And sometimes you might have their attention a little bit more and they'll listen to the details and really be able to drive stuff home.
Well, that's incredible in the worst way.
In the worst way.
Yes. Right. That's crazy that not only that just the act in and of itself happened to you. And I'm sorry for that, but the fact that you held that for that long and thinking that you played a role in that because you were a child. And
I was a child.
Children are easily, I can tell he's 16. I can tell my son that the sky's green. He's dumb. He's not going to know.
Yeah. If you explain it in a way that sounds like you know what you're talking about,
like
microparticles,
if you say it with enough confidence, you're,
like,
I'm just kidding. My son's not really dumb. I just made a joke at his expense.
Really anybody, all of us are, can be
be
manipulated,
If you tell me a great story, I'd be like, really?
Yeah. I can be sold for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it, but that is wild.
And I sold it to myself. No one, other than him, what the pastor said. And all of that, I just put it in. Because the moment that we walked out of the church, my mom said, we're going to go to the police. And I said, Mama, no, this town is too small. And considering what he had said, I'd already internalized it within the time that I went from the church office to the foyer, out in the breezeway of the church. I'd already
internalized
groomed that
too, being groomed to think a certain way, probably, left you.
And so I turned all that blame inward, and it ate me alive.
Well, that's really important for you to go out and talk about that, because there's a lot of women and a lot of girls that feel like it was my fault. My fiance went through it. Yeah. And for the longest time, she felt like it was her fault. Like she did something wrong, especially when her family didn't believe her that it happened. And that's the most important thing, is when someone comes and tells you, at least your mom believed you.
Yeah.
Right? And, that's something that back then, it wasn't really talked about so much. You've seen it on Catholic churches, right?
Yeah.
But it was normally boys, not so much women. And that's something that I'm glad that you are using your platform to go and speak about that, because there's so many in the rooms that I go to. I would probably say 90% of women have had something done to them in their life. And even the men, a lot of men have too, when they were boys.
Yeah.
And that's something that needs to be talked about. That's something that needs to be, and especially when you stuff it down for so long, thinking it was my fault, and then you realize, holy shit, it's not my fault.
This is an important thing for people to hear.
So important.
It's important that you're telling the story, and it's great that you're using your platform, but I'll just tell you right now that I'm honored that you're using ours to do that.
I mean, that's the whole reason I started this journey through pageantry, because I knew I had a story to share and I knew it needed to be said. You know, I always say that my one goal in life is to bring light to the darkness and set the captives free. And I don't care if that's spiritually, I don't care if that's, you know, in your mental, you know, with abuse, anything like that. Like all of it is good. When we come to the light, like so much healing, and that our words and telling our stories, the confession is what brings healing, and talking about it. And then sharing the story not only creates dopamine and oxytocin and all the things that are actually healing hormones in your own brain. The listener also gets those same, you know, hormones. And so it's just good all around to share your story and to hear other people's stories.
Well, Steven came on, and I mean, he said one of the most impactful things on here, I think, to date, but he had dealt with a lot of stuff like that. He lived a rough life, and he said that when I tell people what happened to me, it's like medals that you receive from the military. He's like, if you go in the military, you get a medal for Purple Heart, or, you know, Medal of Honor, or all these things. He's like, when you wear them outside, you're taking the power that it held over you away. Right. And just having him explain it that way really made me evaluate some of me too. Right. Like some of the things that I might keep in that aren't nearly as crazy as that, or what he dealt with. But yeah, you're just wearing your medals out there now.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely are. So, I mean, good for you.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't want to live in a world. I have 7 children. And so I don't want to.
7? Hold on. Wait, 7.
7.
Okay. Do you know all their names?
No.
Do you get them confused?
I do. And then it makes me really mad.
My mom has 4, and I've been called Doreen, Janine, Ricky my whole life.
Yeah.
And so, especially when she gets mad, it's like, Ricky, Michael.
And then I find that, like, the older I get, like, words don't come as fast either. And I'm like, ugh.
That's a whole
it's
lot.
A whole lot of kids.
That's one. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of kids, but that's a whole lot of chaos.
It is absolute chaos.
Yeah.
It is. You know, they say that cleaning a house when you have kids is like brushing your teeth when you're eating Oreos. Basically, how it is.
That's I complain about having 2. And
2's hard too. They're all hard.
yeah,
Because you got the one, you got your Prada purse. Like, oh, I have a kid, one kid, it's cute.
Yeah,
but they can be, having one has its own things because they don't have playmates, and then but then 2, like you're like, I have to entertain you and you, and then 3. I mean, there's every single stage I've been through. It is hard.
What's the youngest and what's the oldest?
So me and my husband have been married for 22 years, and my oldest daughter just turned 21, and our youngest is 7.
Oh, man.
And we homeschooled them for 15 years. And then
all of them.
All of them. Wow. And then at some point about last year, we were like, this is too much. And so we sent the first 2 graduated from homeschool, and then we sent the 10th grader on down to a charter school. And honestly, it's been for them, it's been great for me. It allows me to do stuff like this more often and travel and share my story. And they get a nice, good education. They're around wonderful people, and I get 8 hours a day where I don't have to forget their names because I'm yelling at them so much.
Well, God bless your husband, because for letting you come here.
Yeah.
And just leaving him inside of that chaos operating alone.
He's actually not even home. He's still at work. My kids are just feral at the house right now.
Well, you got
there's
built-in
so many
babysitters.
I have in-house babysitters on a regular basis.
Yeah,
I will go home and I will pay for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're welcome, audience. You're welcome. All right. So about 15. So this happens to you. Obviously, you're carrying around a heavy burden at this point, and looking to probably change the way that you feel.
Yeah.
And you start doing that around 15?
Well, so it started changing the way I feel, trying to figure out a way to deal with, I call them coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
I started with an eating disorder. So as soon as pretty quickly after that happened, I started engaging in an eating disorder. And, that made me feel like I was in control. That made me feel like I was kind of a chunky kid. And so I was getting really thin. I was getting all these compliments. And so I just, that was awesome. And then of course, at some point it's not enough. You got to keep adding the layers on top to cover up the hurt and the guilt and the scars. Yeah. And so when I was 15, I started, drinking and smoking and, doing, partying, high school stuff. Like it was all fun and games. And we grew up, so my parents were really well off and I was a very high achiever. And so no one through this whole time knew the depth of my addiction. And I was National Honor Society. I graduated in 3 years. I always made straight A's. I lettered in, I was on the varsity team in cross country and I lettered in cross country my first year. I did all sorts of stuff. Wrote on the high school yearbook and then wrote on the local newspaper. I mean, I was just out doing everything. But come party time, I was just finding one new drug after another. So it, went from pot, which is always a staple.
Yeah.
And then to LSD and to anything we could get our hands on that, and then I started, we got the idea to start dealing. And so I started dealing a little bit. I just kind of dabbled in it. And my dad found a whole sheet of LSD. And I mean, laid into me and was just like, and pot, I think. And just laid into me and no, I'm making it. He found the pot. And so that was like a big wake up call for him. Like, oh my gosh, she's gone off the rails.
Yeah.
But my friend was selling LSD for me at school. And then he got caught at school with the LSD.
Dropped your name?
And no.
Oh, okay.
He didn't. He went to juvie for 6 months. Never ratted me out. And it, I still, just a selfishness. I mean, not meaning to be selfish, but people were so mad at me because of what happened to him. I had a big group of people that were in, but we just carried on, kept doing it. And then, I started doing a little bit of coke here. My boyfriend at the time was a drug dealer as well. And, still I don't want to paint a picture of we were this drug dealer. We're living in these trap houses. He was the bartender at the country club. We were wining and dining with these kind of upper echelon type people. And then, at the dregs of the earth at night.
Yeah.
And, once I left home, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. I couldn't wait. Me and my dad had a very tumultuous relationship. And when I went to Austin to go to UT getting a journalism degree, that's when I met a friend and he introduced me into heroin. And it got bad. It got bad real fast.
Yeah.
Were you smoking, shooting?
I was shooting.
You were shooting it?
Mm-hmm. And so I was actually recounting it the other day to my oldest daughter. And I was like, it's so funny because my son actually went and he drew blood. And I was like, I used to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just that moment. And you're like, who was I?
Yeah.
I'm so vastly different than who I was. So it was one of those moments that just hit me kind of square between the eyes. But yeah, and I was thinking about it. It's funny how the older you get, it's you don't even realize that you have never thought about these things. And so I was thinking about, I was like, I was doing it, once a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, trying to get it every day. And luckily the friend that I was doing it with, he had already been addicted and had gotten off of it and knew how bad it was and was trying to hold me back.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, but if you had given me 6 more months, it would have been a daily thing. I was already, shooting up, driving with a bag in one hand, throwing up, trying to do work, to get there. And I'm like, I am so not okay. Then I have to leave,
Yeah.
So it was was going to go downhill. And I just so glad that what happened, the reason why I changed happened at that point.
So talk about that. Well, before we get into that, was there a moment between 15 and 19 where you identified that I've got a problem here?
No.
No?
No.
I'm curious about that.
I'm just having a blast. Whatever drugs we can get our hands on, the harder the better, the mixier the better,
Yeah.
And I had no intention of stopping.
Okay.
Like none. I was happy.
Yeah.
I still remember it as like, oh, it was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was never really one like, oh my gosh, that was such a bad. I mean, there's a lot of bad moments. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
That were scary because being a girl in the drug community, it can put you in some really precarious situations. But it was just a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so talk about what happened to kind of get you out of this. What was the moment there?
So I always wanted to be a writer. I always was a storyteller. And I had gotten into UT with a journalism degree, going for a journalism degree. And I always wanted to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was writing this book. It's kind of like apocalyptic, very like much what I grew up when I was in the church. We learned about revelations and God's coming, Jesus is coming back and all the things. And so it just, something about it was like really like kind of touching me. And I was like, I probably should go get a Bible and like do some research. Cause that's what like good writers do. They do research and they like map out their character development and stuff like that. And so that's what I told myself. I had no intention of anything else. So I dropped a hit of X, drove around to find a church. I was just like, if I just go to a church, they got to give me a Bible for free. I ain't paying for it.
Yeah.
And, that day I had decided to make some sort of fashion statement, which actually comes into play later. I was wearing this giant black tutu, this like leather bodice shirt, and I had taken part of the black tulle and like made a black veil, and I was wearing like blood red lipstick. And so when I walk into this church, I literally look like the bride of Satan.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m.
Yeah. And
there are two little old ladies in there, and they are like, what just walked in?
Yeah, like what the cat dragged in.
And, I'm still like how I am now. Like, I'm not a scary person. So I'm like, hi, like, looking all crazy. And, I just said, can I get a Bible? And they were like, yeah, we can get a Bible.
Yeah, you can have two.
Yeah. Well, so they went into the back. Like, they went into the back because I guess that's where they had to go.
Yeah.
And together, for protection, they want to be left alone with this witch that just walked through the door. And, I think about it. I'm like, I wonder if they sat and prayed for me back there or anything. But while I was there, left alone in the lobby, the church doors were closed. And I was like, I wonder what I'm kind of artsy. I'm like beautiful Catholic, like, let's see what artsy things are inside this room. I want to see what's inside. And so I shake the doors and they're locked. And I was like, that's weird. Like, why would you lock the church? Like God's sanctuary.
Yeah.
And so when they came out, I said, hey, can I get into the church? And they were like,
yeah.
Are you going to do a seance in there?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And just from like the center of who I was, and I didn't know I was going to say it. Like, I need to pray. And they were like, yeah, all right. So they opened those doors, and there is this beautiful wooden crucifix of Jesus. And it's that, just like the second verse of Amazing Grace that says, the moment that my sins were revealed was the exact moment my fears were relieved. The moment that I knew I was a sinner in need of a savior was the same moment that I said, it's already done. Mm-hmm. And I just knew I was home. I had questions that I didn't even know I was asking that suddenly were answered. And so from that moment, all of this is derived.
Wow. And how did you end up kicking the drugs?
So this is an interesting thing because I didn't realize how crazy it was, what happened, until a police officer, and I told him my story, he was like, you know that you don't just kick a drug habit like that.
Kick heroin.
Like you could just jump off.
Yeah.
But I did. It was like a light switch flipped on. And you'd been in darkness for so long. And it's like, why would I go back to that darkness? Why, when I have this is what I've been looking for all along. Why would I go back to that counterfeit?
Okay.
And I mean, I didn't have any issues. And I did have issues with the other things, like stop smoking pot and stop smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. And there were a couple instances during that journey that honestly strengthened my faith a lot more, is where and as drug users, like if you found like a little bag of cocaine, like that you had forgotten about, like you were like, score, like this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So I found a bag of Coke and I was like, I have to make this decision. Like I have to flush it. And then one day I'm like stepping out of my car and there is literally a bag of weed right where I step. And I was like, you gotta be joking.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're testing my faith here, but like, this is a little crazy. And so I took it and I, flushed it again. And each time I said no, it strengthened me to continue to live the life that I was called to live.
That's great.
That's awesome.
A lot of people that come sit in that chair, number one, they have a hard time kicking it. There's a long process for them. But when they do, there is that spiritual awakening, that moment for them that happens that really just can't be explained, there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
And you finding it at 19, going into a church kind of as a researchy sort of like, I'm looking to do my artsy book thing, and walking out of there after this thing, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Can I ask, since that had happened to you in the church, did you hold anything against the church or against God or Jesus for that happening?
I get that question a lot, and the answer is no. I knew the moment that it happened that it was a person and that it had nothing to do with God. My parents had instilled with me, that God loves me. And I knew that.
Yeah.
I just was like, okay, well, I'm just going to like get away from organized religion. That was what I told everybody. Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm going to get, I don't do organized religion.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends, especially at the end, that were the harder users that were like, Christians are stupid. They actually had like posters, Christians are stupid on their thing. Geez. And, I would always be like, why? That's a dumb, maybe it's the journalist in me. I was like, that's so dumb. Like, you don't have a brain that you realize that Christians and God are two different entities.
Yeah.
Like, these are people. And that's like, to label a whole group, as evil. I mean, let's not label any whole group as evil based on a couple people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like let's just use police officers, lawyers. There are piece of shit lawyers.
Yeah.
And there are piece of shit cops.
Yeah.
But they're human beings. But there's also really good ones too.
Some really good ones.
There's some really good ones out there too. So to just lump everybody into the same category because of a couple of bad eggs, probably literally a couple of bad eggs, is probably more good than bad. I would be willing
I would
to
hope
say.
so.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, but I agree with you on that point.
So no, I didn't have any animosity, and it's really amazing. Like almost like that was like this full circle moment,
That's good, because my fiance, when she went through it, she was real big in the church. She used to sing for the church and do all the stuff for the church. And whenever she got molested, she was like, well, I did all these things for you, God, and you didn't protect me. You didn't protect me. And it took her until we've been together for 2 years, probably like 4 months ago. we go to church every Sunday, and it took her until about 4 months ago to where she told me, like, I feel it again. I feel what I used to feel when I go to church now.
Yeah.
So, and she knows now that it wasn't his fault. It's just sometimes it's what our journey is.
Yeah.
And it's nothing, you know, if he could take it away, he would take it away. But that's not what he's supposed to do. You know, unfortunately, we have to go through problems. We have to go through things to get to where we're trying to go and to learn from them, as long as you're able to learn from them. Some people, it pushes them down and they never come back from it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you did. Yeah.
And to teach what you're
Everybody
doing right
else.
now. You're teaching. And his fiance came on a couple weeks ago and she did great. She told her story. But that, to me, that's kind of that full circle moment for that, right?
That
Where
growth.
you get to go help someone, even if it's just one.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
I remember I used to grow up listening to, different newscasts with my dad, and I would give situations like, well, what if the president did this? And what if did this? And, and he'd be like, well, that doesn't work because da, da, da. And I just, every single time we would go through this kind of song and dance, I would say, it's just one person at a time.
Right.
Like, that's how you change the world.
Right.
One person at a time.
Yeah. Brick by brick, right? Like, it's not, Rome wasn't built in a day, all the cliches, right? It's just, let's find one more, like, I'm not in addiction or in recovery. My buddy was, though. And it was like, I could see this guy. I could see that on the other end of it. And it's like, let's just go find another one of him. Like, you know what I mean? How many more of him are out there? If we can find one more, makes it a much better place.
I mean, Jesus changed the world with 12 disciples.
Yeah. Right.
And we're still
And not the 12 best people out
and
there.
not even,
either. They were like not the 12 that you would normally pick by any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I'm glad for that.
Yeah. Hey, it made a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, I want to talk about your transition late in life after having 4,000 kids into
Feels like it.
yeah, into getting into
this,
pageantry, into what you're doing now. What was the spark there?
So just like I was in high school, I mean, I've always been an overachiever and worked really hard. So when I, came out of college, I had one kid, had a husband, and I didn't realize I was going to have a bajillion kids.
Yeah.
And so I, went into marketing and advertising, worked a little bit, and then came home. And, it was like, I think I'm going to work at home. We had our second kid. And I, started blogging then. And so I was just like, I was kind of doing all the things. Like, I'm like homeschooling here, I'm blogging here, I've got clients here, just doing all the things. And it just never really like fanned out for me. And I kept thinking, like, I'm ready, God. Like, let me go and tell my story. I'm like ready to go. And I am so thankful that God kept me in a place where he was like the training ground. Because recently I feel like God told me, like, there were things I needed to teach you in private that you would have really, really regretted if I taught you while you had a stage.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. And so I, plowed along, but I wanted to always share my story. And I tried in 1,000 different ways. And finally, it wasn't until I gave up. I had a blog for 10 years, had, 50,000 page views. Like, I had email subscribe, all the things. And but it just, none of it was making money, maybe a little bit. But I was working so hard and I was so burnt out. And I just said, I'm done. I'm going to turn this all off. I hate this. There was actually one real big moment that I didn't get a job. I was flown up to New York after 4 interviews with a really prestigious news organization. And they called me right before Thanksgiving 2019. And they said, you didn't have this job. And I was crushed. And that was the final straw. And so January 2020, turn off my blog. I am not doing this crap. We're done. Don't ask me to tell my story again, God. And during that time, we had gone on vacation, which left us in $10,000 of debt with 9 people going on a vacation. we did it as frugal as possible, but it cost us. And then coming home, and we don't have extra money to throw towards a credit card now.
Right.
And so I had started picking up stuff on the side of the road and just selling it on Facebook Marketplace, like doll houses, bikes, lamps, whatever people threw out on Big Trash Day. And it just really started taking off to pay off that debt. And within 6 months, I paid off $10,000 worth of debt just picking up trash. And then it kind of led to this whole vintage furniture thing. And the first e-commerce year, we made over 6 figures selling vintage furniture. And it was in the middle of a pandemic.
Vintage furniture that you was picking up off the...
So that was 2022 was our first e-commerce year. So we went through the pandemic like everybody. But at that point, like we were making tons of money just doing that. Like I think I made, $20,000, just like during the pandemic type of thing. And, the next year, and this was all like, I was kind of unofficially doing it. Right.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, people were throwing stuff out on the side of the road. And because there was no Goodwill open and people were redoing their house like crazy.
Yeah.
And Venmo was all of a sudden a thing, and Facebook Marketplace was blowing up. So it just was I was at the right place at the right time. And we were just like, oh my gosh, we have so much money. Like we have never, so we were like on Medicaid and food stamps.
Yeah.
Like we are poor. Like, 7 kids, like it takes a lot.
That's a lot of
but we were making $35,000 with 5 kids, and it was hard. And so us having, money was like, just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And that financial freedom is really what I opened the opportunity to get into pageantry, because without that, it would have been different.
Yeah.
And so I heard this, kind of, you get the tapping of like, okay, hey, remember that thing you used to do?
Yeah.
And I would be like, I do not hear you. I'd actually like physically put my hand like this, and like I felt like God was telling me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just sell vintage furniture. Like, leave me alone. I'm happy. I don't have any kind of, I erased my internet presence. I don't have any internet presence. I am fine. Like, I have a fake name on Facebook selling furniture fine off the side of the road. Like, I don't need none of this. And at that point, something hit me in the Bible app. There was this preacher, and something about him, I was like, all of a sudden, like, the Holy Spirit just entered the room, and I just was like, this guy. And so I started looking him up. And he happened to be a speaker. He actually happened to teach speaking, and he had a speaker conference the next week in Dallas. And I was like, I want to go to this, but I don't, because my dream had been crushed of doing all this. And I was like, I'm not doing this again by myself. Like I tried to build that kingdom, and I ain't doing it no more. And so I said, God, you're going to have to pay for it. Well, within 2 hours, I made $1,000, which paid for the mid-sized ticket. Because there's like tiers. Yeah. That one included a headshot. I was like, I don't do that. I don't need a headshot. And I went there and I met a girl, and she had gotten the 3rd tier ticket, and we had met over dinner, because you get to VIP dinner. Yeah. And she was like, I got this speaker reel. Like, I don't need this because I'm not a speaker. Like, she's like, I just signed up for this. Like, I don't know why I'm here. And so she's like, you can have it. And I had happened to be telling kind of the success story of my vintage furniture the week before. So I had a speech prepared. Yeah. And so I went on stage, and suddenly I have this like MTV style, I'm this amazing speaker, like that is looking great on stage with professional cameras. And I go home and I'm like, God, what are you doing? Like, I don't need this headshot. I don't need this speaker's reel. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And so I shove it all down. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. And the next week I went to a women's Christian conference. And what's interesting is that night, like, I was like, I don't want to go to this. And so I didn't go that night. Mm-hmm. And the girl was like, oh, well, there's a Saturday morning session. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I need to go. And because I'm good with God when it comes to the like vintage furniture in my life. But then, this whole area like of my dream being crushed and like, never coming to fruition. I had sacrificed a lot having so many kids. I just was like bitter. And so I went to this conference, and there's this, she was Miss America 2006. And, you know, she's an older lady now, and she was talking, and she's, you know, like telling her story. She's so sweet. Oh, I got a college scholarship. I won, you know, Miss Georgia. Oh, and then I also won Miss America. And I'm thinking, oh, that's so sweet for her.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ex-heroin addict. I played roller derby. Like, I wore 16-hole Doc Martens in school. Like, I danced on the floor with goth lipstick, black lipstick. Like, pageantry is not the vibe that I'm going for. But she said something that really caught my attention. She said, I can go into places like schools where they can't preach the name of Jesus, and I can say the name of Jesus. And I was like, all right, you got my attention.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I mean, since I got saved, like, I just want to tell people about Jesus. I just want people to go to heaven. I just want people out of darkness.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so I started looking at it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. The next week, I go to a business conference, and Mrs. Universe is speaking. And I'm thinking, I have never in my life met a pageant queen.
Yeah.
And what's the, you know, with all this stuff, what's the odds that I'm going to meet 2 in 2 weeks? She tells the same story, or she tells her story. And she said, if you have a story to tell, put on a crown and a sash, and people will start paying attention.
It's a fair point.
All right. But again, you're going to do it. And my friend of mine who has a nonprofit paid for my entry. And then people just started coming out of the woodworks to send me money and support me and bring me up. I was on a trip to LA, and this girl contacts me out of nowhere, and she's like, I'm going to do your Botox. And I was like, Botox? I don't do Botox.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't that girl. Like, I'm like vintage furniture.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you know,
all natural.
I'm good, you know? And I was like, okay, well, I'll think about it. And then, I mean, from knowing her, she has this mansion with a guitar-shaped pool. I have a motorcycle sponsorship. Suddenly, a Broadway star is coming to sing at my fundraising event. They're talking about hanging the motorcycles from the ceiling because they've just recently reinforced the ceiling. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a $1,000 smorgasbord, like charcuterie board spread on this like gigantic kitchen island that I didn't pay for. And I'm thinking, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced.
And this is all just in support to get you to...
Just to get me to be... And that was the Mrs. Texas America pageant.
And you went into this thing kicking and screaming, basically.
Yeah. And so I was just like... I mean, I was having fun, too. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Putting on some fake eyelashes and dressing in rhinestones. It's not, it's, you know, might have been on my radar as the little girl. And I thought, well, surely I'm going to win this pageant. Like, I mean, it is written in the stars.
Yeah.
I didn't even get in the top 12.
Yeah.
And so, like, the curtains are closing, and I'm thinking, you know, my, like, inside is cold.
Yeah.
You know, like, it just, all of a sudden, and I'm so embarrassed, like, all my sponsors, all these things. And God was like, don't worry, I got something. I was like, okay. And so I went into another pageant, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just do this. Just do this one for fun. Like, I'm going to not pretend to be pageant girl. I'm going to be just Elaine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say whatever I want to say. And didn't win that one either.
Yeah. Did you finish higher?
No, I didn't. No. But I was finding my voice.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was finding this new identity that wasn't, because, you know, when I was blogging and stuff, it was like very Christian, and it was this voice that I was finding in the world, in the secular world.
Right.
And I didn't know, and it was all very new.
It's also very safe.
And it was very safe.
Because you're doing it on the keyboard or whatever, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Blogging
like,
is a super safe. You're not out in the public.
I'm like drawing these. You're so uncomfortable with it because now it's you.
Yeah. Up
there, and it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. Like.
Yeah. So you know, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to another one. I'm going to be a little bit more serious this time. And I got third runner up. And then a friend of mine who I had met at a women's conference, and she was my sponsor for all, like, 2 of my first pageants. And at some point she was like, I think I'm going to do this. And this looks cool. I think, and she was kind of like starting, I had introduced her to another like group that was like a Christian group. And so she was kind of growing in her faith, and she was watching me like, I'm doing this for God, because I was very open about it. She's like, if you want to do it for God, like I want to do this. And so I run in that 4th pageant. She has no training. I'm her coach, if anything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she's an awesome girl. Don't get me wrong. And she wins. I get 3rd runner up again. And I was like, I honestly, at that point, I was fine. Like, I really was fine with losing, because I knew every time I lost, it taught me something. Mm-hmm. But there was this thing in my heart that was like, God, what? Like, where do I fit? Am I just the connector? Like, did you start me down this whole pageant path so she could win? Like, I mean, I guess that's cool, but like, I feel a little used here.
Yeah, you're like, I kind of want to win.
I mean, I got a story too that I'm trying to get across. And like I said, my whole purpose in life was to bring light to the darkness and set the captives free. And so I'm crying in the shower, makeup, all the makeup. It's so much makeup, right? Running down.
Yeah.
Get all, pre-showered and fresh. And I'm like, oh, I got to return this thing to my friend. She's down the hall. And so I go to her room, return the thing. And I'm just like, man, this is so cool. Like, God has got this awesome plan for you. Like, I'm so proud of you. And she looked me square in the face and she said, Elaine, God is awesome and he's doing really great things. But did you know that you're the reason I'm following Christ today? And I thought, okay, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here chasing a crown.
Right.
And God's like, I got something that's way better.
Been there the whole time.
Like, there's an eternal crown waiting for you that will never rust. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I was like, I would tell people, I'm just going to become the Susan Lucia pageantry. Like, I'm just going to keep running and I'm going to keep losing and people are going to come to Jesus and I'm just going to keep, I'm fine with this. And so, that's kind of, but I really still wanted to win, right? Obviously. But I was just like, God, your will be done.
Yeah.
And so I started training for this pageant, the United States of America pageant. And it was a pageant that really had kind of been on the radar. Like, it wasn't the last pageant in line because it is an amazing pageant, but it's a really good pageant. Like, it's one of the, because there's different levels of not fanciness. What's the word? Prestige.
Yeah.
So this one's like up there. It's a newer pageant, but I mean, they are doing everything right.
Yeah. And
it is so well run. And even from the inside, I can say it's so well run. But it's very social media heavy, which I have had lots of experience. I did marketing and journal and blogging, all the things. And so it really fit my personality. So I was already hitting the ground running. I was doing appearances. I did 80 appearances, within a 6-month period before that, just was going crazy. And I went to the pageant. I felt so prepared. It felt different. When you know, and it's just like, I felt like I had studied for a really hard chemistry test. And I walked out of that room and I was like, I aced that.
Yeah, got it.
And, it would have been a surprise to me had I not won,
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of took a little bit of the fun in the moment, I mean, there was a moment I was like, maybe I won't win. But I was like, no, I'm going to win. This is my time. And I won. And I was just like, okay, we're going to do we're doing this more. And then the moment that I stepped off stage and started serving the community, it was like, I got speaking engagement after speaking engagement. I'd already been doing tons of podcasts, but I was just able to share my story with so many people. But I already had, because of all the prep that I had done,
right.
Because I had lost so many times. Mm-hmm. I was hustling more and more, getting those and honing my voice and learning my speaking points and stuff like this, that it was just perfect timing. And so, here I am and preparing and got 17 days before the
17
pageant.
17 days.
Well,
and
it's incredible to me, watching Miss America pageant on television, right? Growing up. it
Yeah.
was on, we would just sit down and watch it. And,
I miss those days when it was just on TV.
Yeah, it was just there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the perception of that is that it's so, I guess, like superficial.
Yeah.
And like glamorous, and really like the misconception, I would even argue, would be like, oh, these are just hollow.
Yeah.
You,
No, I mean,
over
when
there.
you're seeing us, because all you see is them prancing around in a bathing suit and a
Yeah.
gown. Like it, I mean, that's
singing or doing whatever they did for their
I mean,
talent.
it's not. It does feel. I mean, if you don't know the industry, it does feel really hollow. But pageant women are some of the most amazing women. They're already doing everything in life that they're being mothers, they're being wives. You know, there's also the myth, you know, that people aren't married as well. They're out in their community, they're serving, they're volunteering, they're raising, I mean, millions of dollars for their cause, whatever their cause is. But you don't see that on stage.
Well, and just bringing it back to you sitting there right now, you're telling a story that needs to be told as a result of this thing. I mean, now just listening to you talk about this whole time, like, I just feel like that hollowness of all those feelings or misconceptions that I would have are just like disappearing, you know? And we had Megan on as well.
Emily
Haley.
Bonds.
Emily's, Haley, but Emily Bonds was
Emily
the other.
Bonds.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I know Emma.
yes.
She's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, so
She's
she
awesome.
she was awesome. She
Yeah.
came on here, and same thing, man. Like the story and this platform that it gives you to get out there and really help is really incredible.
Yeah. And it's like everybody needs a different type of person to minister to them. You know, I remember when I first got saved, or after we'd been saved for a while, a friend of ours had first gotten saved, and they were like going to these like heavy metal Christian, like,
Yeah.
and my husband was like,
Some of my favorite metal bands are Christian metal bands.
and
If you slow down their lyrics, and
yeah,
it's like
you
pretty,
can understand it,
it's
yeah.
pretty cool. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
I know. And it's just like, that's what they needed when they came out of bondage. They needed something that was familiar. And that's what's so cool about God is he doesn't throw you into like that, oh, you're going to all of a sudden be in the church choir and you're going to wear the white thing.
Right.
You're going to be swaying side to side. Like if you are a roller derby heroine girl, like he's going to put you in the type. And so, I mean, that's where, my community was, a vintage community. I did slam poetry, like shave my head,
Nice.
doing roller. Like that was my people because I had come from this lifestyle.
Right.
And those are the people I needed to surround me. And so, if there's like, a pageant girl that gets saved, maybe the pageant community. But I grew into the pageant community.
Right.
Didn't start here.
You evolved.
I evolved.
You evolved into it, but you recognized it and quit fighting it.
Yeah.
And now you got this amazing platform. And, for what it's worth, I think you're reaching way more people now doing what you're doing than being the roller derby girl, which I would conceptually find way cooler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if, as a child, right?
Yeah.
If you gave me the option to watch roller derby or watch
Miss
Miss
America,
America
yeah.
pageant, I'm going roller derby,
I'm
right?
going roller.
Yeah.
I'd be a
Miss
hard.
America pageant was huge in our house.
You,
It was.
My mom watched
huge.
it every,
yeah.
every single time.
Every-
And we never picked the winners. Like
Yeah.
we would always like, well, that one, because a lot of them have the same speech and
World peace.
Yeah, world
Yeah.
peace. I want to save the world. Your story is 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
And I think your story is something that people can relate to. I don't think I know. People can relate to that. Like, yeah, I want to bring world peace. And okay, everybody said that. But somebody getting up and saying, I suffered from this and I suffered from heroin addiction and look at where I'm at now. And that's, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story.
I have 94 kids.
Yeah.
Like all these things, like all these things that I'm doing, like check me out. Like, yeah. No, that's crazy. So you said something early, you said something a little earlier about your husband, right? And how did those conversations go with him about about all of this stuff.
About the abuse.
Well, about the abuse and maybe even the addiction.
Yeah. So he grew up with in the 1970s. He's a little older than me, and his mom was a hippie by like theory.
Yeah.
And his dad was a hippie and the using.
Okay.
And so he grew up with his dad. He remembers at one time when his dad, like, she had to keep putting blankets on him in the middle of summer because he was trying to kick the heroin habit.
Okay.
And so he was very familiar with that. And his brother had gone to prison, and, so it wasn't like totally foreign to him. But when we met at church, we met as in the video department at church, because I was in journalism and he was in RTF, which is radio, television, film. And like, he fell in love with me right away.
Yeah.
It took me a little while to warm up to him, but I was like, he's a good guy for somebody else.
Yeah.
Now 7 kids later.
And 7, he was like, he often says, he's like, if you would have told me then, when I was all nervous and thinking she doesn't like me, that we were going to have 7 kids, he was like, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah. But once he landed you, he's like, I'm having 7 kids with her. Like
maybe 8.
Yeah, we're getting in there. Or what? We're gonna figure this out.
He came from a big family. I didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So did you, as your kids have gotten older, have you shared your story with them?
I am, probably like any trauma survivor. I'm an oversharer in general.
Me too.
You know, I mean, and I like that about
my
me.
9-year-old knows everything.
Yeah. So, and I did. I told them everything. Now I would go back and probably be careful because now that I have a 21-year-old daughter who is going out into the world, in the dating world, trying to find her own spouse, she's having to deal with some of the fear that I like. I was 22 when I had her. I mean, I was scared that the same thing was going to happen to me.
Yeah,
sure.
That will happen to her. And so, I mean, I just kind of was like, she was scared to go to the mailbox sometimes because she thought someone was going to pick her up.
Yeah.
And so she's having to work through some of that. So I wish I would have been a little bit more careful that, proving that, not all men are like that. Some men are like your dad, like he's a great guy. But he had his own things to deal with. His dad introduced him to porn and stuff like that at 12. So he was like, yeah, men are all bad. Like, I mean, and so it wasn't a good combination to raise my poor little guinea pig child. But, we learned, but they all know. I mean, they know everything. And, sometimes they have to go, Mom, I'm not you.
Right.
Like, I'm like, did you sneak out? Yeah. Did you steal that? And she's like, Mom, like, I was raised by 2 Christian parents that, like, we love Jesus and we, like, treat y'all good, homeschool, like, I mean, I'm sure they're going to do bad stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an idiot.
Of course they are.
Like, I always assume the worst.
Yeah.
Like, the worst of the worst. And that's the trauma. That's why I was talking in DC when I was telling the legislators, I was like, you don't realize that we need these victim resources because it is a generational trauma that's happening because I am now raising my children out of my own fears, and it's affecting them in different ways.
That's probably your biggest fear as a parent, that your kids don't, like, if they came home and said, this happened to me, you would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's every parent's worst fear.
Everybody's biggest fear. And I think that I wouldn't beat yourself up on being too out there, because I think over preparing your kids is way better than under preparing.
That's true.
You know, and me and her mom have had talks to where she's like, you're too honest with her. She's only 9. And she's known my story since she was 6.
Yeah.
So I didn't wait till she was 9. She knew at 6 what cocaine and meth and everything was, what it looks like, what it does. And I tell her mom that the worst thing for me to do is go through the journey that I went through and not prepare her for it. Yeah. And then one day her come and tell me, Dad, this is what I did, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right? So I think over preparing them is 1,000 times better than under preparing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, maybe not scaring the shit out of them.
Yeah.
But
I think it's just constantly having those conversations.
Yeah.
You know, me and my daughter, she's now having to say, you know, I wish you would have done this better. And, you know, I wish it, because she's now out of the house. So she's able to like kind of have
Right.
a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And that's honestly made me grow. 'Cause I'm like, you're right. I should have done that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And we just continue to have all those hard conversations. And, you know, I love that about the generation, you know, that they're so willing to talk about their emotions, even the men and stuff like that. And I'm so glad because so many things are being healed and we're stopping.
Still a
that
lot of work to
generation.
do.
But it's been good.
Well, with that too, there's a saying that I always like I use it with my son. He's an athlete. So, but it's like, I'd rather tell you whoa than giddy up.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's way easier to pull back than it is to tell you to
Speed up.
to
go,
get going. Right. So I would use that for
Yeah.
the way you have been with your children. It's
Yeah.
kind of easier to back off
Yeah.
than to like start tiptoeing around.
Well, way
hard
better for them
subject.
to realize like the opposite, like not like real, like when I was a kid, you know, I was like, oh, everybody's good. Oh, wait, not everybody's good.
Right.
It'd be better to be like, everybody's bad. And then realize, oh, wait, no, everybody's good.
Yeah,
like that.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a way better realization.
Yeah,
100%.
for sure. 100%. Well, thank you so much for coming and
Thank you for
doing
having
this.
me. Yeah.
This was, that's an incredible story. That's an incredible arc of a story. And the things that you're doing now, RAINN?
RAINN. Mm-hmm.
RAINN. Go check them out. We'll make sure we put up a link
Yeah.
on
for
your
them.
episode. And when it comes out, we'll get that put up there.
Yeah.
And, keep doing what you're doing.
I am.
You better look when you go to Vegas and you win, you got to come back.
Got to
here.
come back.
Send us the pictures so we can share them on
Yeah,
our
Yeah,
we
I
want all of
absolutely
that.
will.
We'll
Yeah.
make sure that we get you all up. But
Yeah,
Man.
when Emily came on the next pageant she went to, she won.
Yeah. Yeah.
Send
and
us
she
pictures,
sent us
man.
pictures
We
and we
were-
posted it on.
we were stoked, man.
So
We were
cool.
like,
She's
let's
so
go.
cool.
Her husband's cool as shit too.
Yeah,
They are. I mean, really, if every time I meet a new pageant girl, I'm like, you're my new favorite.
yeah.
You know, they are some really amazing people.
Kind of for
Well,
us too.
growing up,
you know?
I always thought like they were real snooty, right? They're just.
And they may have been. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are some.
The
Yeah.
two that have came on here are not snooty at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, your podcast is called Two Addicts and a Moron. So
Yeah.
maybe you've just gotten a certain time.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're a special crew of dude here,
Yeah.
and we attract a very special group of pageant women that come on here. And again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story. It's
17 days. Where can we watch it? Can we watch it?
Yeah, there'll be a live stream of it, and I'll post my pageant account is USOA Mrs. MRS Texas, and I'll post the link on my stories and the link, like have a link in the bio type of
Okay.
thing.
how do they find you?
For me, I have a website, a very, very skeleton website. I'm still trying to figure out where my writing
Yeah.
part of me is ElaineMingus.com. It has all my podcasts. I have a podcast for the vintage furniture that's on there, so it has all of that type of stuff. It has 3 blogs on it.
Okay.
And that's all. And I'm just trying to go slow and really honestly I don't want to build this myself because I want to go to heaven and God say, I built it with you and it's a kingdom that will last and it
Yeah.
glorifies me. And so that's my biggest struggle because I'm such a hustle girl
Yeah.
is not to run ahead. So I'm just, if I don't feel like writing, I have a book that I wrote. It's a fiction book and it's published. It was published a long time ago, but I am rereading my own book right now.
What's it called?
It's called Without Regret. And I am like it is touching my heart again. Like it's and it's like it feels like a little like healing in the sense that like I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do this. Like I used to like this.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I'm reintroducing myself to that part of me again. And I'm kind of timid to her.
Nice. Well, we'll buy it and we'll put it right there.
We'll get a copy.
We'll stick it right
Let
there.
let your girlfriends read it. I
Yeah.
mean, you can read it, but it's kind of a chick book.
Yeah,
My
well,
favorite movie is Mean Girls. So
It's a good movie.
that's a
The Notebook, The Proposal.
I love those. Yeah.
Man, The Proposal to me, perfect comedy and chick flick. And
Wait, that's the one with Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock
That
and
is
Ryan
one of
Reynolds.
my favorites. Yes,
That's
well.
a great chick
It is
flick.
so
Sandra
good.
Bullock was my crush.
She was
when I
also Miss Congeniality.
Yeah,
too.
Miss. Well,
Yeah.
doesn't hold the candle to The Proposal.
No,
though.
it's that one's a good one.
That Proposal movie is like, it's a chick flick that your dude would leave like being like, this was a good movie.
This was a good movie.
Yeah, so to me, that's like the perfect one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
The Notebook, not so much, man.
Yeah, that's definitely more of a chick flick. Yeah. So
Just a dude sitting there. Yeah. Well, thank you.
How do they find you on Instagram? You have an Instagram too.
I do. It's Elaine.e.mingus on my Instagram. I kind of just like throw all the like collab with the other account right now because I'm doing so much on the other account. So it looks almost like exactly like my pageant account right now.
Okay.
Well,
But
still, check it out. Maybe someone will reach out to you that struggles with the same thing.
yeah, I'd love that.
And you can walk them through some stuff. That would be
Recruit them into pageantry too.
Yeah, and then you got a cool story too. Let's get a crown on you. Let's go. Let's get a sash. Well, thank you so much for taking time out from all of your 78 children and to come onto our podcast. It's still insane to me that you have 7 kids.
It's insane to me. You know, they like only 5 of them were. I mean, 2 of them were planned. Anyhow, sorry. I'm like going. I know, like
No.
segue to go
I
off.
want to
I
hear
keep
about
adding
this.
another little thing.
But like for real, 7 kids
did
with
not.
you being like, this is a pretty well put together
Yeah.
person for 7 kids. That's insane.
Thank you.
Good
I
job.
credit Weight Watchers. That
Yeah.
was a good. Yeah. It's well, especially for a post eating disorder weight loss. Like it's very balanced. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, your journey is one hell of a journey. And, I hate that you went through it, but I'm happy that it happened because look at you now.
Yep.
And look at what you're doing now. And it was an honor. I always extend this to everybody that comes on here, but you need us for anything, we'll show up. And that door is always open to you. If you ever want to come sit behind the camera and watch, if you want to sit in that seat again, if you win, you're coming in that seat again. We're having you on. We want that new on there, and
The crown is, I mean, this crown is pretty, but that crown is like
we're
gorgeous.
I'm talking like the rhinestones. I want it.
I will deck out. I will wear all the things.
We'll wear a suit for that.
Yeah, and
Yes, that
I
would be
will.
fun.
I
I'd like
will
to do that.
tuxedo up for that
do a
one. We'll go.
suit. I'll wear a bow tie.
No, we're gonna rent. Let's go rent tuxedos
That's fine.
for that podcast.
For that one.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm down.
super cool. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, thank you again. We'll 2 Addicts and a Moron, episode 60, whatever.
62, 61.
60.
We lost
60 something.
Yeah.
61?
61.
61.
Yeah. We are out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Love you,
you.
Joe.
Hey.